Welcome to Season 4 of Might in Motion, the podcast that champions motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. I'm Marianna Kinnee, your host, bringing you conversations with inspiring leaders and innovators who challenge the status quo and push boundaries in their careers and lives. Whether you're here to grow, lead, or ignite your own journey, we're here to keep you moving forward. Let's dive in. Today, I welcome Aron Kolosik. He is a passionate leader dedicated to achieving exceptional results in both business and life. He is the founder of the UnStuck Master Plan and runs his own podcast to provide his business and life lessons to promote holistic growth. He excels in empowering teams, simplifying processes, and driving innovation to achieve remarkable outcomes. Personally, he's committed to growth and inspires those around him. As a devoted follower of Christ, husband, and father, Aron draws strength from his family and faith. He shares his valuable insights on LinkedIn, his podcasts, and social media to challenge thinking and foster impactful connections. He's eager to connect and elevate others to new heights. Aron, welcome to Might in Motion.
Thanks. I'm really happy to be here.
I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since we were connected. And, there's a few reasons why. We have some similar backgrounds, corporate America, jumping into kind of entrepreneurial spaces, chemical engineering, and applying that structure to our lives. And so I kind of actually wanted to start there with that background in chemical engineering. It's structured, It's analytical. How did that foundation influence your approach to coaching and personal transformation?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's, oftentimes I'll have conversations, with my family of like, how do you think about these things all the time? Right. We were going to church on Sunday and my wife asked me, why are you getting in the left lane? And I'm like, well, I'm getting into the left lane because neither one of the lights are green. So I want to go to the fastest route. Right. And this is like, maybe it'll save 15 seconds along my journey. Right. Like, it's just like literally the conversation that's in my head. It's just, that is who I am. And, it's just part of the game. And so for me early on, I was mid 20s and I had already decided that I wanted to go into management and be in a factory. I had been a co-op student in a polyethylene chemical plant. And that's really where things to me started to come alive, because before then, I think like many of us in our careers were like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I just want to make money. Right. I didn't really know, like, I knew I was good at math and I knew I was like, had a good, decent personality. I could connect with people, but I'm like, I just want to make money. And Chemi's made the most money. And so I chose to like that, but I thought maybe I wanted to do pre-med and like do something else. And when I stepped in the factory the first time, that was the first time where I'm like, I'm at home. Right. And I really enjoyed being in the plant, seeing how things were, meeting the people. And I just kind of fell in love with wanting to be a plant manager. But, that's how it kind of all got started. But then how do I link it to personal transformation? Well, that didn't happen until like years later. At P&G, we have some pretty strong systems, like especially like this strategy development and deployment, where it's like, here's where the business wants to go. And we link it down to where we want to be at the plant and where I wanted to be on my line. And then I set up a plan and a scorecard and all of these things, right? Like that's what we do in operations. And I was doing network marketing at the time. So back to this entrepreneurial hustle, I thought I was going to become rich selling vitamins, like nutritional supplements. A company called Advocare, loved it for those years. But I went to a conference that they had, and it was a specific session called Designing Your Future. And this guy laid out this concept, and it really was for me like this big aha moment where he said, hey, I want you to draw like this axis. I'm like, okay, good at that. Done a lot of calculus. And he said, on the top, the y-axis positive, I want you to put your spiritual aspect. And 0 is the center, 10 is the top. On the x-axis, I want you to put your physical health. On the bottom y-axis, I want to put your relational health. And then on the other axis, I want to put your career or financial health. And he said, I want you to put a dot on each one of those lines on a scale of 1 to 10. And then he said, I want you to connect these dots. And he's like, that's the wheel that you're running down the road of life with. And mine was pretty dented at the time. Like spiritually, it wasn't part of my life. It was like a 2 out of 10. My family was like a 5 out of 10. I had lost a brother in a car wreck a few years before that. And we were pretty wrecked as a family. So that was hard. And I looked at that and I thought, man, if that's really true, like it's really true that the weakest link in my life is like a limiter on my potential, then I need to do something about it. And so I literally took the P&G systems. So this is back that we put at work. And I looked at my personal life and I was like, okay, well, if I'm at a 2 on spiritual, like what would be some things I need to go do, and like mapped it out. And my wife and I went on a retreat and we like laid everything, like I still have the Word document from today, like way back then in 2002, where we have the goals in our personal lives, like physical health. What do we want? Our relationship, what does that look like? We had one baby at the time. Like, well, what does that look like for him? There's a thing called kinder music back then. Like, we'd like to have him in kinder music, like we were really intentional about laying that out. And as a proper engineer, I put it into a Gantt chart, put it in there and I would check. And so like for me, like I literally applied like this, like, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to go. Let's map it out. Let's use some problem solving tools and applied it to my personal life. And I thought it wasn't novel. I thought it was just kind of like a neat idea until 20 years later when I realized like I've been playing this game for a long time and a lot of people don't do that. Like they aren't intentional in the areas of their lives that really where they're really thinking holistically. In fact, they're sacrificing one of those areas that they think that's really important to them for the other one, and this actually should be the opposite. And so that's really kind of where the coaching came about, because I'm like, oh, I have some tools, right, that I had created for 20 years, but again, all very much on my logical engineering based mind.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, just coming from the engineering background and that resonates with me. And even though like I started off chemie, ended up industrial, it's all about process improvement. It's all like that whole getting in the right lane. Like, yes, like I understand where you're coming from. I'm trying to be the most effective and efficient with your time, with your resources. And I would assume like what we just talked about and having and mapping out, the spiritual, the physical, the career, family, all of that, and applying this Gantt chart methodology. Is that what led to the principles behind the Unstuck Master Plan that you created?
Yeah. So, there are 6 principles in that game. And so, or in the Unstuck program. And the first one is this law of the weakest link, right? I call it the law of the weakest link. And it really is this concept that you really need to look at all of those areas in your life holistically to really take account of where you're really at. Right. And we often don't do that. We just exist, and it's like, it's good. Right. It's like literally how's everything going, Marianna? I'm good. Good. It's like, but what does that really mean? And if we could put some like context to it and say, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, like what does that look like? And that's where I created this assessment that I have people take a look at. It literally takes 2 minutes. There's 8 questions. Like it's A, B, C, or D. And I often tell people this concept of like, well, I'm not stuck. I'm like, that may be true now, but it is not true forever. Right? Like there are moments in all of our lives that we get stuck. Like it's just a fact. It doesn't mean that it's always going to stay that way, or, the worst case is you get numb to it and you just think that you're not. But it could be that you're moving, right? Like the worst kind of stuck for me is like when we're moving, but we can't go faster because something's in the way, right? Yeah. It's like for me, like driving in the loop in Atlanta, right? Like I'm trying to, like how many different ways can I come from the airport to North Atlanta when I was down there? Like, but like you can't move because somebody's blocking you in the left lane, or you're driving on a trip as a family and the semis will not get over. Like that's still a type of stuck. You're still moving. Right. And so that's where the first principle came from, was that. And that was really where it all began. Right. I'm like, I have something there. And then there are a few more in there that we could go through. But yeah, that's really where it began.
Do you think that is the one that really trips people up is actually being able to identify where you might be held up.
Yeah, because oftentimes they can't see it. There's blind
Mm,
spots. Um, and as I spend more time with people, I give them some more questions. Like we
yeah.
ask deeper and we go deeper. Well, physically, well, what does that look like? Well, how much are you sleeping? What are you doing? What's true about your cholesterol? What's true about your blood pressure? What's true about, the rest of your blood work? What's true about your eating habits? Like when you start thinking through what it really, really means, and if you have a standard, right? So that's what we've all
Mm,
learned, in operations is like
yep.
you need a standard to measure it against. Because if you just say, "Hey, I think I'm good." Well, I started with it was pretty clear that for me the spirituality was a problem. But many people don't really know until they're presented with a standard. Like, "Hey, if a good relationship looks like this, if a great relationship looks like this, well, where would you put yourself?" And you're like, I might be below average,
Yeah.
in that space." And then because you might not even be aware of it,
Yeah.
especially if we just get so busy.
Yeah.
I mean, busyness takes over everything. And I just recorded a podcast on like we're over busy. Like we
Right.
we we commit to way too much. And
Yeah.
for the sake of doing good, especially for our kids, like, I love my two boys. Wanted to give them every opportunity to experience different things. But there comes a point where like if I'm not investing in myself, it's to a detriment of my whole family. And going from one practice to another thing is not like it's not sustainable and it's not realistic. We're actually doing them more harm than good because it's just too much. Like
Mm,
they can't really enjoy it. And
yeah.
therefore you're not enjoying it, right? Like it's just, you're just going, going, going. And it's hard to hear, but it's a reality.
I mean, no is a complete sentence.
Yes.
And it's very hard to say, I think sometimes.
Yeah. I
But
mean, we love these little people that we've created, but at the same time, it's like we have to take care of ourselves.
yeah.
And know in your personal schedule at work is important too, right? I was talking to a plant manager not that long ago, and he was talking about his time. And I said, you need to leave the factory at 5 o'clock every day, period. Promise to your family, promise to yourself, promise to, he's like, yeah, but so and so, there's always somebody that wants to talk. And I'm like, that's their problem, not your problem. And I know that sounds really harsh because we want to be there for our people. But the reality is, if you just told them, like, if you literally said if you came up to me, Marianna, at the end of the day, it's 5 o'clock, and you're like, hey, I want to talk to you about something. I would say, Marianna, I'm really sorry. I've made a promise to my family that I have to go.
Hmm.
I need to leave right now. Can we schedule some time tomorrow to have this conversation? You're going to be okay with that.
Yep.
But, we over index to being available for everybody. And then we don't take care of ourselves or we don't make those commitments. And I think sometimes it takes a mentor for you to see that, to put the mirror up in front of you and say, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we're in spaces we've never been before. Unless if you have a great mentor, then it's kind of hard to ask the question because you don't know because you're trying. Like
Right.
nobody in my family had experienced anything that I've experienced over the last 20 years. That's just, I love my parents, but they've never walked in the shoes. So, they love me, but that's which is enough. But it's like they can't help me in this space,
Right. Right.
you know.
No, I love that. A lot of the folks that listen to this podcast, I think having those boundaries and understanding that it is okay to have boundaries at work is going to be really important for them to hear because they're typically growing up in middle management, right? They're making these big transitions to now you're managing people, now you're managing people who manage people, right?
Yep.
Um, what has and this might be it's going to be a little bit of a pivot, but I think
Sure.
it'd be really important for new
Yeah.
leaders to hear this. How can leaders today create a culture that empowers others to actually lean into their own growth, even when there's like this high pressure corporate environment? That first step of leading by example, I think of showing boundaries, I think that's key, right?
Yep.
But are there other nuggets that you think new leaders could really grasp and say, oh man, this is something I can take with me and improve my career and create a culture that drives that.
Yeah, I think you're right. The first thing that came to mind was leading by example, because part of my conversation with that plant manager is, what's the message that you're sending this other person, right? Because let's be honest, right? When you're the senior leader in the organization, people know when you come and go. Like they absolutely know when you come and go. They, like, and I know the second one that I know is super important is when you're sending emails and when you're not sending emails, right? Like I'm very cognizant as a senior leader of when I would send emails to my team. Because if my rhythm was to get out of the office, go do my things, and at 8:00 at night, we sit down and we watch a television show, I sit down and watch it with my wife, whatever. But I've got the laptop and I'm batching my emails. Like I'm cleaning up my emails for the night. It's like not to do stuff, but I'm just like filtering, going through quick replies. If they see the reply at 9:00, now all of a sudden they're like thinking about what Aron wants. I don't want that for them, right? Like I want them to be thinking their own thoughts. I want them to be clearing their mind. So I would do a delayed delivery on my email to the next day.
Same. Best trick ever.
It's best trick ever. And same thing with weekends. Right now, they get annoyed with me on Monday morning when it's like, how did you send me 25 emails at a time? I'm like, well, but I don't want that to be there. And so that's one. And I think the second one is, in your one-to-ones, you should be asking them about what their personal growth plan is. We often talk about individual development plans and it becomes a check the box activity. And, but if you're a middle manager and you're trying to grow and get to that next level, it really matters what your people who are following you think about you. Like, and if you really genuinely care about their growth, you should be having conversations with them about like where they're struggling and should be providing some opportunities or some things for them to suggestions. Again, you're not mandating, but like books that you've read, tips that you do, like before every, major meeting, for example, I fast for 24 hours. Like it's a thing I do.
Yeah.
Right. Because I want my mind to be as clear as possible. Two, I don't want to have like sugar or like that on the brain. And I also, for me, as a person of faith, like I believe that there are answers and clarity that come through fasting. It's an ancient discipline, regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are. Like it's across the, it's universal, but we do it very rarely. So sometimes I will share those things that I do to get clarity, or if I do Wim Hof breathing before a meeting, like these things where I'm like, hey, I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to go somewhere where I don't look like a weirdo, doing these breathing techniques, but they matter. They make a difference. And so I just think we should be sharing our experiences by being vulnerable. Like, and I guess probably that's the last piece, which is like, I think when I grew up early in my career, being vulnerable was viewed as incredibly negative.
Yeah.
I think we have reached a point now where being vulnerable is what's mandatory for senior leaders. Because millennials and Gen Z, and nobody likes to be put in a bucket, but we could just say the younger generation, they want to see real leaders. Like they want to see that you're real. And so when you struggle, it's okay to share that in your one-to-ones or, in your conversations. So I think there's just so many ways that you can show it and ask it. But I think it really ultimately comes down to, do they believe you care? And if we're checking the box on an IDP or we're checking the box on a, some sort of thing, like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like you have genuine care.
Yeah.
And you didn't just chat GPT their review and you're good to go.
It's so true. Like, and having those connective moments, like I always had, just like little notes about things that are personally important, right? So that I can remember, because you may have like huge teams, right? And it can make it hard to remember, like, okay, everybody's little nuances. But when you can remember, oh, this person, has a dog, maybe the dog's been sick, you can ask about like, how's Fido doing, right? Or we had a big race coming up. Yeah, I always tell the story where I had a guy on my team who loved the University of Tennessee. So I wanted to make sure I knew what the score was, right? Because then I could be like, yeah, like go Vols. Or I could be like, oh man, totally sorry. Like that game sucked. Like you were robbed, whatever. But at Monday morning, I had something to connect on a different level, not just the project, not just the sales, not just the in-stock or whatever the case may be.
Right. Because if you don't have that, like, I mean, again, part of management and leadership is walking the floor, getting to know the people. And if all you're there for to ask is what are the metrics, like that's what all you're going to get.
Yeah.
Right. But if you do connect with them, about what's going on with them and what's, and again, genuinely care about those things, like taking that time and attention, like people respond.
Yeah.
And you can actually be harder on them, like I know that like seems scary to some, but like the reality is like when you have a connection with somebody, you can ask a lot,
Yes.
and you can, and again, with the intent of having them be their very best.
Yes.
Right. And I've had this conversation before where it's like, Aaron, you're the best boss I've ever had because I know I care about them. And frankly, I could care if they left the company. And I think that's another tip that just from a leadership perspective, like that shows through. When you can truly say to somebody that you care more about them than you do about the company, then I think that's a whole different game.
Yes.
And most of the times, like people will say, well, why would you ever tell somebody that? I'm like, they're going to leave. And I'm like, they're going to leave
no matter what.
No matter what, like if they want to or not. We got a better shot of them staying if they actually leave that I truly care about them.
Yes.
Right. So I think this concept of like, you can show that care and I might be the best boss, which is the person I talk to and the hardest. Right. Because I just like my kids, like I expect, like there are things that we're tough on them, not angry, not flying off the handle, but just like, come on, I expect more. Let's go. I know you've got more in you. Like we can push. Because people do want to be pushed, whether or not they tell you that or not. Like, because we want to grow, like inherently. I had a season in my career where I had a plant manager who was my boss, didn't ask me very many questions. I'm like, this is great. Because I was off the radar. He had another problem operation manager that he was working with. But I didn't grow as fast during that season. And my VP kind of jumped around him and started putting some pressure on me. And I was like, oh, I needed that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's, again, because she cared about me. Like when I look back at her, like in the people that I care most about, like I really appreciate in my career, like she was hard on me, but I knew she cared and believed in me.
But I think it's that balance of putting pressure, but like in that caring, that's it's a magical place when you have a leader that can do that.
Yeah.
Because
for
we've all
sure.
had the ones that just put pressure. And then you just,
Right.
and all you're doing is like, okay, how high do you want me to jump today? Right.
Yep.
And then you've had the others that are all just, like butterflies and unicorns and everything's great,
Right.
but it's not. So you have to be able to find that balance. And, I always use the term like radical candor. I'm going to have radical candor with people on my team both ways. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's in this kind of virtual space for many people. Now, if you're in operations and you're at a physical building, sometimes it's different because you're in person, but being able to find that balance virtually too, I think is really key. So
yeah. And sometimes, it's funny. I had this conversation with my son because I'm looking at some other things and which may take me on the road a little bit again. And the reality is because the systems that I've set up, we actually talk more.
Oh, that's cool.
My wife and I talk more about things when I'm on the road than when I'm at home at times. Because when you're at home, like, we'll talk about this later. Right? It's like you don't have to adhere to this strict schedule of like, hey, we're going to do this tonight at 8:00. I'm on the road. We got dinner. We got this. Like, this is when we're going to talk. And then we talk, for 30, 45 minutes. And it's like, and so I think that there can be benefits, especially if you're, in Zoom calls and you're getting better at that. Like, again, there's so many things that through the years where I'm like, okay, like I get better at looking at the camera so that you feel like I'm looking at you, right? Like as a leader, the conversation is, I know that for me, like you're off the grid down here, but I'm looking at the camera because that's what matters.
Right.
Right. And you're doing it for them and being able to read body language and all those things still can play. And it's a little bit harder on Zoom, but you can still do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, there are people that I've had join a call and I just know right away
Right.
something's off. And I may just message them. I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, are you okay? I'm fine. Everything's good. Okay. Everything's not good. All right. So
Right. Let's rewind. What's going on?
let's have a real
What's going on?
conversation, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that can happen, to your point, virtually or in person, but being aware is so key. Um, you know, one thing that I want to make sure we close on is
Sure.
you've spoken openly about this on this podcast and in other spaces, that you're a devoted follower of Christ. And I'm really curious, how does your faith guide your leadership, your coaching, and your parenting philosophies? So you mentioned a little bit earlier about fasting, but I'm curious about like other ways that you've leveraged that.
No, that's great. That's a great question. Um, I think today that we're oftentimes scared to share our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and I say share our faith in the context of what we stand for personally. And at the end of the day, like, I am who I am, you are who you are. And part of my job is not to judge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in that space where I can share authentically what I believe, and again, that's about who I am and what benefits me. And I find that a lot of people believe that there is something that they can connect with, that they can draw on when times are tough, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, think to your point earlier of finding commonality really matters. And so for me, like, I remember being in India, and I took one of the coolest boat rides I've ever taken in the Bay of Bombay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we literally got on this boat, and it probably was 100 degrees at 90% humidity, like Houston level humidity. And like, we took this boat across this bay, like 90-minute boat ride, and we got to this ancient Hindu temple. And for me, our faith was an ability to connect. They were
Mm-hmm.
different faiths, completely different faiths, but it was an opportunity for me to connect. And
Mm-hmm.
so, again, as a Christian, I believe that God's going to work out all those things, right? Like, it's not my job to like convince. It's my
Mm-hmm.
job to lead by example. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, one of the things that I'm radical about, and my second principle is living by code and telling the truth. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
radical honesty, the radical candor, like, it is
Yep.
so important in today's world where we're like, we have to tell the truth. We have to be realistic where we're at in the world of like sugarcoating a memo because we want to get this project done. And it's like, if the numbers aren't there, guys, the numbers aren't there. We got to live by a code. We got to tell the truth. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think there's part of that. And as a father, again, it's how do I role model? How do I
Mm.
role model grace? How
Yeah.
do I role model love? How do I role model the characteristics that I view of the God that I believe in, is there?
Yeah.
Not all those things that for me kept me from being in the faith, right?
Right.
Which was God as a judge, God, like, it's just all about black or white. It's like, well, it's not really that way.
Yeah.
There is this thing called grace. And
Yeah.
I need to show that in all aspects of my life. It doesn't mean that there aren't consequences to falling short. We all have consequences to falling short, whatever those things are. But I can do that with grace. I can do that with respect and integrity. I can do that in a way that you don't lose yourself in that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's how I try to do it in most ways for me.
Yeah. I love that. That is, I think there was a period, I know, like in my career, where it's like, no, you kind of had to hide everything. Like, you had to
Yeah.
hide like your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, like everything. And then we wonder why, as a whole, people just don't feel like they can show up as their whole authentic self, because everybody
Right.
knows you're hiding something, whatever it is, everybody knows it. So you might as well just like rip off the Band-Aid and show up as how you really are, you
Right.
know?
And I think the key to that is, for me, and politics is a tricky one for me as well, right? The key to that is sharing what you believe and why you believe it,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm.
not showing up as like, my job is to convince you to believe something different,
Yeah.
right? Because that's not our role in the workplace,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
That is not the role. That is not the role in the workplace to try to convince you to believe that, well, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. Like, that's not my job. But for me to show up authentically myself and to share what I believe and why I believe it, and be open to the fact that there could be a different point of view, like, yeah, that actually makes me a better leader. It makes me a better human, it makes me a better person because
Yeah.
I've been open. And in today's world, we have so much closed-mindedness at times. Like, we have to be open as leaders because we
Yes.
have to understand that, like, if you're leading any organization, the diversity within that organization of belief is so different. And so if you are coming across as judging, or you're coming across as like, well, because I believe this, then you should believe this, that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we got mixed up. I think a couple decades ago, you're like early on in the career where it was like,
Yeah.
that was the thing. Like, everybody's like, well, you're trying to make me, well,
Right.
no,
Not
I'm
really.
not if I do that. No, I should make you want to be curious about what I believe by the way I live.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not by what I say.
Yes.
Right. Or
Yeah.
what I tell you to do, And so I think we've started to learn that as a society. And I hope we all can get better at that through the
Yeah.
years.
No, I love that. That's awesome. So I know there's probably people listening that are like, man, you know what? I feel stuck maybe in their career, maybe in their faith, maybe in their family life. And they want to connect with you. They're like, man, what Aron's saying really resonates with me. Can you can you share, like, what's the best way for people to connect with you? Maybe take that quiz you talked about
Yeah.
earlier
Yep.
and really get started.
Yeah. So the quiz is a simple way for you to just take a quick assessment, right? And it's at the www.unstuckmasterplan.com. And literally, it's going to be 8 questions. And it'll take just a couple minutes for you to go through, just to help you understand that. And at the end of that, you're going to get an email from me saying, hey, if you'd like to connect and just have a free 45-minute call where I'll just take you through, like, here, let's talk through it. Like, what's working and what's not working, and here's some ideas. Like, that's an easy way for me to get for you to get a hold of me. And then the second easiest way is on LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of my time, just in terms of interaction. So connect with me, send a connect request, follow me, send me a message, a DM on LinkedIn, and I'm always engaging on that platform because I think we need to share some things differently on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But that's the way to get a hold of me. And then I think if you want to know me more, my podcast, which I think we have 57 episodes as of tomorrow, and they're like 15 to 20 minutes, Marianna, like, where it's just like different topics that I think are helpful. I go through the details and the principles of the Unstuck program on there. It's Unstuck, Break the Mold and Become Unstoppable. But if you searched my name on both Apple iTunes and Spotify, you'll be able to find it.
Awesome. That is great. And, everybody listens know that I love to have my handy pen. And one day I'll have, a sponsor that's going to send me amazing pens to write with. But I like to
Right.
jot down like those golden nuggets for me that I think will resonate with everybody. And, I loved how we started the conversation with your origin, being a co-op student and falling in love with being in the manufacturing space, where you said you walked into a factory and you're like, I'm at home. Like, this is where you wanted to be. And then through that journey, you were able to, go to events where you learned about, like, how do you map out your personal life on that spiritual, the physical, the career, the family, and realize that there's gaps. Okay, well, now you can apply the strategies that you've already been applying in a production space, like with Gantt charts or whatever, and you can apply that in your personal life. And, like I said, as an engineer, that really like rings
Yeah,
true to
for
me,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
But then that then leads into your Unstuck Master Plan. And we kind of talked about, rule 1, which is the law of the weakest link. And so you're able to map things out so you can really start identifying your blind spots and start having a standard to measure against. Right. I always think of the health aspect as being probably the easiest one, right? Because you can get on a scale, you can get your blood work done, you can see
Yep.
like what all your numbers are. Sometimes figuring out that standard in other aspects of your life can be hard,
Yep.
but having that mentor, somebody who can help kind of hold up a mirror, can help you. And that could be somebody inside your workspace or maybe outside.
Yeah.
Which for me, it was somebody outside that really kind of helped resonate with me. So there's different ways. We talked a lot about leadership and creating a culture, and you talked about leading by example and how people actually see your actions. They see if you're emailing me in the middle of the night, they see if you're not leaving when you say you're going to, and your family sees that too. If you made a commitment to be at your kid's little league game but you're showing up late or not at
Yep.
all, or you're spending the whole time on a call, people see that. Your family sees it, your work team see that. So being able to lead by a positive example, which really leads into kind of how you're leading by example through your faith. And you want to make sure that you're creating a space that you can be authentically you, which opens up the door for others to be authentically themselves as well, and really drive kind of an opportunity to live your second pillar, which is around living by truth, doing what you're saying you're going to do, and having that just that presence and the willingness to be able to be true to your word and true to your action. So those are some of my notes. I know there's like a million more that I just didn't get to scribble down, but Aron, this was an amazing conversation, and I really appreciate you joining Might in Motion.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always great to share, and again, it was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Might in Motion. Remember, every step forward counts, and the power to create momentum starts with you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It makes a huge difference. Until next time, stay inspired, stay mindful, and keep moving with might.